Good morning, you beautiful souls. I appreciate you joining me here on The Reluctant Watchman. My last two videos were about the process we went through of leaving the church, kind of where my thoughts were on that. And I read my resignation letter. You can go check that out. And I remember thinking at the end of that, I don't think I ever actually said exactly where we are at and the communities that we have found ourselves in since then. And the last two mornings, I've had a phrase come to my mind just after I wake up. And I thought it was important to this discussion. And this is what I wrote. Give yourself permission to question everything and question anyone who suggests otherwise. Asking questions is extremely important. And God wants us to ask questions. So it's okay. Give yourself permission to ask questions. So now that I've left the faith that I was born and raised in, and I say I left the faith, I don't prescribe to all of the dogmas of that religion, and I took everything that I felt was good with me. Hold on to those, love them, appreciate them, have value in them, and I even value all of the things that taught me contrary, things that I disagree with. I value those almost just as much because it showed me the contrast so that I can make a decision for myself of where to go. To give you a little bit of a backstory, if you didn't have a chance to go back and look at any of the first videos that I've done, my journey of waking up to things within the church began almost a quarter century ago. And I'm not going to go down the conspiracy route, but it began even around 9/11 and the church's response and a lot of things that were going on. But I also remember around that time reading one of my first near-death experience books, and it was entitled, I believe, Return from Tomorrow. And since then, I read hundreds of them, and they've given me just a different perspective on what this life is for, and that we do continue on, and that who we actually are is not this person here. We're gaining experience here, but the person we truly are is the person, the soul, I will say, when we leave this life. So I began reading. I've since read hundreds of near-death experiences. Maybe 8 years ago, there was one person, relatively well-known in the area, in Utah and Idaho area, that started to listen to. A friend of mine was helping this person, and I learned some good lessons in there, both on things that were enlightening and things that, well, just like the church, things that I disagreed with. In these movements, there have also been groups, for example, like the Doctrine of Christ group, if you're familiar with the Utah area. Very interesting group. They had their own splits and divisions, and they are interesting. And I know some people that participate in those groups, and I love them, and I pray for them. My scope is a little bit different. I agree with many of the things that they have. And I've even participated in a group, for example, I have a video on the Nemenhah records. And if any of my friends from that group, as we study the Nemenhah records, I love you guys. I hope you guys are doing fantastic. And I pray for you guys. I miss you guys. That was a wonderful group to be able to be part of. And I have friends still from that group, and I just pray for them. That was one that was a fascinating chance to be able to talk with people that were willing to just ask questions and were seeking for truth. And I really love those people. So just shout out to you guys. I just hope you guys are doing well. So what happens when someone leaves their religion? Oftentimes we call this going into the wilderness. And I really think that it's okay that sometimes we have to go internally and resolve some of the things that are going on before we can go out into the world around us and engage with that world. And that's okay. I think a lot of us have to go in and we have to resolve some of those traumas. Now, do you need to do it alone? Should you do it alone? No, not at all. I don't think you have to go into the wilderness alone. Find a good friend. And I would say, above all, if you want one of the best of friends, take a divine guide. Take the Savior with you. Take God. Take God with you. Take one of those guides with you, and they will help you through that journey in the wilderness. And, maybe there are people that have already found a community. And that community is helping them through that process of unpacking a lot of the stuff. And I would say that spiritual trauma is a good way to describe some of what people have gone through in leaving their religion. Now, do you need to join another church? Yeah, you can. I think it's really important to understand that sometimes people need that close community of people. Could I go back and worship with the people in my local congregation? I could. There would, as I mentioned before, there would be some challenges with that. I'd have to be silent on a couple of things, but I can definitely rub shoulders with all of those people, with anyone of any faith. And sometimes some people do need to join a church, a formal, organized religion. Do you have to? No, you don't. You don't have to join a formalized organization or 501c3 non-charitable organization. You don't have to do that. But I will reiterate this idea, though, that community is very important. I would say this. I don't believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ operates in a vacuum. When you study his teachings, Christ is very clear about the importance of reaching out to other people. There's a reason we are here in this life with other people. We come here as soul groups or soul families to be able to learn from each other. And I believe that community is very important. So while, yes, we could go and be the monk that lives on the top of a mountain, we have very little interaction with other people. I do believe that there is great value in being engaged in the process of learning from other people. So think about, what you might be able to do within those communities. And maybe it is that you're called to be a missionary of sorts, to be able to spread just your light and your love and the gifts and talents that God has given you within that community. I've said this before, but I think if there was any one church that everyone can belong to, it would be the religion of love. It encompasses everything. And how we define that, we could get into the weeds on that. And I'd like to get into future videos about what love means, what charity means. The beautiful thing about this religion of love is that you don't need a membership card signed by another person to get into this church. The only thing that is required is that you have a broken heart and a contrite spirit. God just wants your heart. That is your membership card. Now, if I were to give any ground rules to what these communities might look like, if you've left your church, took everything good that you could with you, but if you've left, I think there are some basic ground rules that, at least for me, have been helpful in guiding me as to places that I go and people that I interact with. So here's just a little list of these ground rules. Everything and everyone can be questioned. I think that's extremely important. You should be able to question everything. If someone says, oh, you can't question that. Oh, you can't question that. You can't question that person. Total red flag. You should be able to ask questions. And I think people who are truly sincere should be able to question that. I know there's a quote from J. Reuben Clark. He says, if we have the truth, it basically can stand upon itself. And if we don't have it, it should be harmed. Truth can't be harmed, but if we don't have it, it should be harmed. The next one here, no one should be forced or compelled to believe, right? Compulsion should not be part of those groups. The next, there is no place for shame, guilt, or fear. Those things are really important to, if we recognize them and see them, we should work through that and understand where it's coming from. And maybe it's our own insecurities, but really understand that there's not a place for shame, guilt, or fear in these communities. A baseline rule, another one would be do no harm. If there's something about the culture, the teachings, any aspect of these communities, they should not harm other people. And you should be able to have complete say, full autonomy as to what that looks like. You should not harm someone else. Another one here is, what if someone says, this is the only way that should be a red flag. When someone says the only way that you can accomplish this or that thing, there are some definitive principles, I would say, like the concept of love, of charity, that is the only way that we will truly come to know and understand God is through charity and love and not fear. Maybe there's some allowances there, but once someone else says, you have to follow the path that I am taking, just question that. And then my last point here about these ground rules is try to find people that match your frequency. And it doesn't mean that you can't move within groups and between groups that have different frequencies. It's totally okay. But just be open to learning and don't limit yourself. But I think this frequency, the resonance that we have with these groups is important. I remember watching an interview with a gentleman about 2 years ago. And when I got done with the video, or at least partway through the video, I was like, oh, that is weird. That doesn't make sense to me at all. And it didn't resonate with me. And I re-watched his video in the last week, and I realized how much my perspective on things and understanding has changed. And I thought, oh, I totally resonate with this person now. I think I was able to raise my frequency and have a better understanding of where this person was coming from. He was actually sharing what he called his pre-birth understanding and knowledge experiences. And so it was interesting for me to realize, don't get weirded out when someone in a spiritual community mentions something and be like, "Oh, that's just woo-woo. That's too bizarre for me." The heavens are very big, and God is very, very big, and truth out there is significant. And doesn't mean you need to accept everything, but just have an open mind. So this is where I'd like to get into what are some communities that I have participated in that I enjoy being in. And I would say if you guys know of a community of people that you've enjoyed participating with, learning from, and engaging with, put them down in the comments. I'd love to be able to just know, like, everyone should be able to judge for themselves, meaning discern for themselves what communities resonate with them. The first community that I've listed here is the Living God's Light community. By the way, I'll put links to all of these down in the video notes, so you can check all of these out. The Living God's Light community is Vinnie Tolman's group. They have their podcast, a community there. I participate there in some of the comments. Great place to be able to be. If I'm going to do a feature video on the 10 points that Vinnie was taught from his guide. Great community. Another one that I've enjoyed is Yannicka Oynes. She does the Wisdom from North YouTube channel. Wonderful soul. I have learned a lot from her and from her guests. You can go check out her YouTube channel. They do have a community as well. Beautiful people. Another person is Ann Tucker. She is a trance channeler. I'll do a video on mediumship and channeling later on. I'll just say this. All of us are channels. It's just a process of receiving divine inspiration and revelation, and it comes in lots of different ways. But she has a website group called Soul Society, a great group of people there. Another woman I recently came across is Martha Alter Hines. She has a group called Living the One Light, and she has a free online community. There's an app you can download, and you can engage with people there and learn from them. So beautiful, wonderful group of people. They recently did a video with a bunch of other channelers on her group. It was beautiful to be able to feel their hearts, their emotions, and to learn from them. So Martha Ann Hines is another. Another group you might consider is IANDS. That stands for the International Association for Near-Death Studies. Beautiful people, beautiful, beautiful people. Another channel that doesn't have necessarily a group to participate in, but I've really enjoyed listening to her and her guests. That is Beyond with Heather Tesh. A wonderful channel. Love her heart, her spirit, and the work that she is doing. Now, the last one that I'll put here is from Alex Ferrari, and he runs the Next Level Soul podcast. And this is an enormous community of people. They do conferences. They have multiple outlets that you can engage with them on. Their YouTube channel. They've got a website, a TV station, I believe, a TV channel. So those are just a handful of people that you might be able to reach out check the links in the description, and maybe that's a way for you to be able to connect with people on a spiritual level. I think this is my personal belief, but going into the future ahead of us, being able to have these connections is important, and to be able to support each other, help each other, learn from each other. And I think community is a very important thing. In addition to just these online communities, go and find some local communities. There are people that get together. I know that at least for the Living God's Light group, there's a local group that meets, I think, on a quarterly basis, about every 3 months. And we get together and we get the opportunity to be able to talk and to chat. And there are many others. And then in addition to that, there are many people who put together events. There are get-togethers, potlucks, and all types of things. Start looking for those types of spiritually minded communities and try to connect with them. So again, if you have some people or places that you've really enjoyed getting to connect with, put their names down in the comments. I'd love to check those out. Now, to end this video, I would like to share a fun and interesting experience that I had that taught me something quite profound. And I went to a bank teller. I had to turn in a bunch of change that we've been collecting for quite some time. And if you've been watching the price of silver, I also had some silver dollars, and I'd gone to a local coin shop, turned in some of those, and I held this up to this woman. We'll see if it'll show up on the camera. So this is, I believe, a 1889 silver dollar. These are, I believe, 0.77% or 77% silver. And I asked her, and I said, how much would you give me for this silver dollar? How much? And she just looked at me as if she's like, well, it's $1. It's just $1. And that's what she said. I would give you $1 for it because it's $1. And I told her, well, just so you know, if I were to take this same coin and go down to the local coin shop, they would give me $45 for it. And her mouth just dropped. She's like, what do you mean, $45? I was like, yeah. What one person sees as just $1, another person sees far greater value in it. And it was a very fascinating lesson for me to realize that not everyone places the same value on the same things. And that we don't have to. But maybe there are times where we limit our understanding of truth and belief simply because we may not be asking the right questions, or we may not have the correct perspective on things. Shifting your perspective just slightly makes such a big difference. I love to do photography, and one of the very important aspects of photography is the perspective that you use. What type of angle, wide, narrow, telephoto, the perspective with which we look at things, the lens with which we look at things, I believe makes all the difference in the world. So be willing, be open to new ideas, new possibilities, and I think in the end to be taught from the divine, from God. And our path will be far more exciting, happy, and crazier than we probably ever thought possible. And I think we chose to come into this life to have that wild ride and experience, because I think this earth and this time, we were so excited to come here, and to experience this, even as difficult as it is for many of us. So I just want to say that I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Take care.